Behind me is a Japanese garden in the making. It's the latest addition at Lendonwood Gardens in Grove, Oklahoma. Again, this is another one of the beautiful public gardens you can visit in Oklahoma, but today we're going to see part of it as a tour, but most of all, Leonard Miller, who created these gardens, is going to give us some tips on how you can grow a lot of the plants that he has here. What do we have here today, Leonard?
Well, it's a beautiful dogwood, and it's showing its great fall foliage. And dogwoods are really architecturally beautiful in the wintertime. They have probably the most gorgeous white bloom in the spring. The summertime, they're a great shade plant. And in the fall, we have this beautiful foliage here.
Well, and shade's the thing we want to emphasize. I think the trouble so many people have when they grow dogwoods and they're disappointed is that they fail to look ahead and look above them and see what type of setting they need for them. And they just don't like to be out in absolute full sun all day.
Yes, they're an understory tree, and that's what we planted here at Lendonwood Gardens, is many of the understory trees, because we have big oaks here, and very fortunate to have those. Now we have trees that grow underneath trees, and what dogwood is the perfect example.
Right.
This particular variety is very hardy to Oklahoma, and it's produced by, it's called the Ozark Spring, and it was actually introduced by John Pear at the Wichita Experimental Station, the Kansas State University Horticulture Department.
Right, he's developed a lot of things that do well in our climate. And Ozark Spring, you were telling me before we got started, is one that will grow in most areas of Oklahoma, again in a site that's amenable to dogwoods, but it will take our heat and so forth.
They like real good drainage. They like an ample amount of water, and we have one here to plant, and we'll get with it.
Well, let's get started here. You've already dug the hole, and that's a good thing. We always tell people dig the hole before you buy the tree, so you know what you're dealing with.
What I'm going to do here, Sue, is I'm going to place it down in here, and what I want to know is, am I going to be level with the ground? And so in this case, this is a judgmental thing, but if you have a straight board, you could lay it across here to determine the height. Also, you would not want to take it out to try it in the hole. You see, I have it in the pot. If it's a ball and burlap plant, you would be concerned about breaking the ball, and so you want to be very careful not to tear the roots, because these are tender roots. And so I tried it in the hole. I think this is what we have. Okay. And let's gently get this out of that and start planting it.
All right. And just go ahead and lift that out real gently.
Now I'm going to adjust it a little bit. Now I'm going to let the roots, I'm going to pull it out a little bit so the roots will be integrated into the soil that we have, which is just an ordinary topsoil. Now I'm going to set it in here, and I'm going to be a little bit low, as I can see. So what I want to do is I want to be very gentle about getting it back out here. I'm not going to pull it by the stem of the plant, but I'm going to actually reach my arms underneath it and set it over and not disturb the root ball.
Right.
Now I'm going to come back with a just ordinary topsoil here, and backfill it a little bit. Then we'll set it back in there and see how we are doing. Now I want to be a little bit lower than the present grade, so that it forms a kind of a well. But I'm still a little low here, so I'm going to try a little bit more soil.
Okay, and that's not a situation that applies to all plants. We want to emphasize that. If you're in a heavy clay soil where water tends to stand and you have trouble with root rot, you might want to set things a little higher, but this is a dogwood. It's going into a rocky soil, and he needs to retain water to get it through the summer.
Okay, now we're ready to backfill. And once we get that in, we won't fill it all the way up. We'll leave 3 or 4 inches here. Then we'll come back and put some water in here. Let that settle real good. Then we'll put a final finish to it. I want to make sure it's standing upright, so I'll look around and make sure that, that we have it orientated the way we want it.
That'd be a hard change to make once you get it all the way in there. And again, notice how careful he was with that ball. You've bought a container-grown plant, and those can be transplanted beautifully in the fall, but you want to make sure that they are held in that ball and the root mass stays together nicely. Okay.
Now I'll finish this off with some water and then finally put the final backfill in here.
Great. Well, next we have a much more challenging plant to grow in Oklahoma, and it's a shrub that we want to get started. Leonard's going to give us some tips on that as well. But with the dogwood, we were concerned about the hole planting depth, and with this rhododendron, there is no hole involved at all.
No, rhododendrons only grow the top 6 inches of soil. They like lots of air and lots of moisture.
And you've got a very specific planting medium here too.
The fungus disease gets these, and so we plant them in pure pine bark. And you can see we have a bed of pine bark about 2 inches that we put down. We want to plant this on the north side of our house, protected from the winds.
Right.
On the east side, if you have a real pleasant or good location, but mostly on the north side, it likes lots of shade, and it doesn't like a lot of wind. Now we're going to plant this pine bark, put this, and this is a mulch.
Okay, this is composted pine bark.
Yeah, this is
here.
composted, and it's real small.
Oh yeah, and you mentioned that there are special phenols that are in the pine bark that are given off by to help resist the root rotting fungi that kill these plants.
Right, so it's real easy to plant a rhododendron. All you have to do is empty a few bags, no hole to dig, and you can plant a lot of these if you have the location. Now we're on shade here. Now I'm going to cover this with a mulch. And this mulch I'm using is another source of pine bark. It's a little heavier. And I'm real generous with this because I want this plant to grow really big.
Okay.
And so I'm going to use 12 cubic feet. Let's get that other bag over here.
All right.
And this will break down. It won't be quite as big, but you can see it'll form a nice bed for this. And this pine bark is pretty cheap. And this plant will grow 6 feet tall, maybe 8 feet wide. So these are fairly large growing plants, and they like lots of root zone. And as this breaks down, this is fairly raw stuff on top. As this breaks down, the roots will spread out into this, and you won't have any problems with diseases.
All you need to do now is remember to water it. That's the main thing. And they're not heavy feeders either, are they, Leonard?
No, you don't need a lot of fertilizer. Cottonseed meal is one of the best ones.
Great. Well, that's real simple.
That's all there is.
Good deal. Well, Leonard, I'm sure when a lot of people visit Lendonwood Gardens, they think, well, who designed all this? Who laid all this out? How can a homeowner go about doing this?
Well, it's pretty easy. If you've got just a regular garden hose, you can lay it out the configuration that you want. It provides you with real smooth, curved lines, and we want to have a nice curve. I think that's something that the garden looks a lot better with curved lines rather than just straight lines.
Well, and I think that a lot of people want that element of surprise in their landscape. We've shown some smaller landscapes earlier this fall, and you can do this same thing in a small front yard. Just have a curve, and he has planted a lot of broadleaf evergreens, a lot of shrubs that as they grow up are going to block some of your view so that you feel like you're going on a little bit of an expedition. But a lot of people don't think about just laying down a garden hose like this, and then you've got some logs laid along it.
Yes, to pick that out, and what I've done is use some Roundup to kill the grass on each side.
Okay.
And then the beds are on that side, and then I use rock or just anything of your choice.
Okay, and that just lines out the whole area, and this is something that I'm sure you can do at home, and just don't forget to use pine bark on your rhododendrons. I know I've learned something today as well.
And one of the things that we forgot to tell about the beautiful red berries on the dogwoods this time of year especially.
Okay, so come to Lendonwood Gardens for 4 seasons of interest. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. You can also find more recent videos on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.